gorgeous, gorgeous girls procrastinate setting up their reading journals. I am a gorgeous, gorgeous girl. Subscribe if you're a gorgeous, gorgeous girl as well. So we're setting up my 2022 reading journal today. I mean, obviously. But it's my first time setting up a reading journal. I wanted to last year and never got around to it, and got to a point where I was like, I'll just wait till next year. And then next year happened, and I waited until like the middle of January, but here we are. You know what? I did it. I filmed it. I'm feeling pretty accomplished, even if I'm a little behind. That's okay. The notebook that I decided to go with for my reading journal is one from Amazon by the brand Anecdote. I kind of just searched around until I found one that looked nice enough and had a color that I liked. And they had quite a few other colors, so I will link the notebook that I chose in the description, as well as any other supplies that I use that I can link will be in the description as well. So my overall theme and vibe for my reading journal in general is very scrapbooky. I'm not really an artist, so painting, watercolors, drawings, I can do it, but I'm never going to be satisfied with the end product because it's never going to look quite how I envisioned it. So going with a little bit more of a scrapbooky feel allows me to be a little messier, make mistakes, and cover them up or whatever, and not detract from the overall end product. So now I'm using some of these sticker dots, which are my favorite journaling supply I own, and I need to order more of them, but I did previously get these on AliExpress, and if you've ever ordered anything from AliExpress, you know it takes like anywhere between like 1 to 2 months. I mean, it could take longer, but that's typically about it, the time span for things to arrive. And I want them now, but I think I'm going to place an order, and I might film a little ASMR AliExpress haul because I love watching those. So moving on to the next spread, I'm starting by making my grid spacing bookmark. I saw quite a few people do their grid spacing this way this year. And so I figured I'd give it a go in my reading journal. And I mean, it's kind of fitting, a bookmark for your reading journal. I will link the video that I initially saw this in the description, as well as I kind of copied the spread that the bookmark is a part of as well. I was really inspired by it and her use of vellum, because I love vellum. I love that you can see through it and draw on top of it or stamp on top of it. Here I'm using some ribbon that I got off of like a Christmas present or something, and saved to have a little tie at the top of my bookmark. And you'll see I managed to break the bookmark more than once. And so eventually I just got frustrated, made it work off camera, and then came back. I trimmed the corners to make it look all nice and presentable, and then got started on the spread. This is just kind of another like title page, I guess, kind of like having my name and some more creative stuff that isn't really into the actual spreads. So here I just taped in this green paper. I kind of wish I had just gone for Kraft Paper to kind of stick with the theme a bit better. But I do like the outcome at the end. It's just not my favorite. On the other side, I am taping in this polka dot paper. I was also just kind of using what I have. Once again, not my fave, but I don't hate it either. And then I taped in the vellum on the opposite side of the green paper, so it kind of like flips over. And then wrote my name on this little piece of craft paper and stuck it behind there. And this is when the sun started setting, so I stopped filming for the day and picked up on the next day. So I made a little envelope to hold the grid spacing bookmark. I wish I had made it a little bit taller, but it's still really cute, and I want to use more of these in my notebook in the future because they're just adorable. I stamped 2022 on the vellum, mostly just because I wanted to play with the vellum. I wish I had some bigger stamps to kind of fill a little bit more space, but use what you have. I then also added some of a book page that I've torn out, and don't worry, it was just from Beautiful Creatures. Not really anything anyone wants. Like, Half Price Books has 1 million copies of Beautiful Creatures, so I don't feel that guilty. So I just continued to add a little bit of extra detail, kind of change things around here and there. I used a couple of these flower stickers. I didn't use them anywhere else in my setup. I don't really love them here, but it looks okay in the end. And what really kind of helped tie it all together was adding 3 of these little craft dots to the side. I don't know what about it made it so much more interesting to look at and visually appealing, but it worked very well. Moving on to the next spread, I went for an index. I've never done an index before, but I felt like in a reading journal, this was the place to utilize one. So my plan with my index is to go month by month and write out every spread that I do in that month's tab, because I'm going to tab each month. So that way I can look at, March and see what spreads I made, and then go to March and go in order and see from my index what I did, instead of just having to be like, oh, what month did I read this? What month did I read that? It'll be a little bit more organized. So I made my index kind of look a bit like a old library card that would be inside books. Now, I'm not old enough to remember those days, but the aesthetic of them is enough for me. This is one of the many stamping parts of the video. I love using my stamps. I didn't use them as much as I wanted to for the sake of time in the video, because it takes a lot of time to stamp. And so I just labeled each side month and then reading spread, so I can write what month I did, or what the months in order, and then what spreads I did each month on the other side. And I used some washi tape to make them look like they were just taped into the notebook. Add a little bit of spice to the spread. So moving on over to the next spread is my 22 in 2022. So this is 22 books that I want to get to this year, in no particular order. And if you want to see if I hit each of these books, you can head over to my Bookstagram. I mean, it's mostly a Bookstagram, but I also do journaling stuff on there as well, or whatever I'm feeling. I really don't limit myself on what I want to post, because there's no fun in that. But you can see every time I start a new book over there, or also on TikTok. And you guys got like 10 seconds of me doing those stickers. It took me forever. On the next spread, it is a reading A to Z spread. It's a bit of a challenge I've learned people like to do, so I figured I'd try it out. Essentially, your goal with the reading A to Z is to read a book that starts with each letter of the alphabet during the year. So that's the plan, and I added a little quote down the page that I found on Google that says, if plan A didn't work, the alphabet has 24 more letters. So kind of like, if one book doesn't work from A to Z, there's 25 more you could read that could work. I mean, I just tried to make like an analogy out of that. I don't know if it worked, but hopefully you get the gist. And I've already read one book by the time I set this up, so I had one to fill in, The Storm of Echoes, the last book in the quartet of the Mirror Visitor series, which was so good. Highly recommend. So the next spread I set up was my 2022 reading goal. And my goal this year is to read 30 books. So I drew out 30 squares, and as I read a book, I will fill in the square to signify that I've met another book towards my goal. And we'll get to it on the right in a second, but I did decide to go with a bit of a key so I can fill in whether I read that book as an ebook, physical book, or audiobook. In the past, I've tried to make my goal 30 and I've never reached it, but I have high hopes for this year. Book Talk has made me want to read more than I ever have before. I just tried to add a little bit of decoration to the top of the spread, and I used my white gel pen to try and distress some of the lines that ended up on the page from the stamp. It kind of helped make it look a little less harsh. Overall, it wasn't a great attempt at decorating the page, but it looks okay. Moving over, I'm drawing out the key that I mentioned already, and I went with 3 different shades of green because that's the color I've been loving the most within the past year, and I feel like I won't get sick of it as time goes on. And I filled in my one book read, since I'd already finished a book at this time. At the time of recording the voiceover, I finished 2. At the top of this page, I decided to give a little bit of a pages read tracker. Last year I read just over 11,000 pages, I believe, but I decided to make mine go up to 30,000 just in case. And then below that, I did a forms of reading pie chart that I'll probably fill in at the end of the year just to show what percentage I read of ebooks versus audiobooks versus physical books. On the next spread, I wanted to do this just because I think it's fun to look at and to set up, and makes it just a little less boring as you're flipping through. And essentially it's just like a doodle page of the books that you've read. So I drew some shelves, I drew out blank rectangles to fill in titles of books as I read them, and then I can also color them in after, and I'll probably stick with those 3 green shades as well to have some cohesiveness throughout my reading journal. I also added some decor to my shelves because what's a bookshelf without decor? And so I just drew some little candlesticks, a vase, plants, and then at the bottom I feel like there was a lot of empty space, so I added a cork board with some little doodles on top to make it look like a cork board. I did the best I could. Some spreads that I considered adding to my reading journal was a book talk or bookstagram tracker to kind of track my following count and like count on TikTok and things like that. But I've opted to make an entirely separate journal that has sections for TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, as well as Etsy. So just kind of almost like a content or like businessy journal in a way, because of Etsy, I guess it makes it a business journal. But mostly it's just like a content journal that I can also plan in and manage that side of my life a bit better than just keeping it all in my head, because it's not working so great right now doing it that way. Now I'm just adding in some more color. It was looking very lifeless, so adding in the color to the plants I think is really helpful to just make it look a little more finished, especially since right now all the books are empty. And then I once again got to fill in the Storm of Echoes and colored it in. Moving over, this is my book bracket so that I can figure out at the end of the year what my favorite book or favorite read of 2022 is. I'm very excited and looking forward to filling this out at the end of the year. And I'll probably film the process of filling it out as well, because I think that would be really fun. And then moving on to the last spread that I set up in this video, it's the quote and title page for January. So I just added some craft paper to go back to the scrapbooking feel. I feel like we went away from it the further I went into filming this, but we brought it back here. On the right side, I am cutting out the tab for January, like I mentioned before, and you can kind of tell because I drew them out before I cut it out so that I would be prepared for the future months, so that I will go through 6 months in a set of tabs, and then once I get through June, I'll start new tabs from the top down. And so then I colored in the tabs with black and wrote on top of the black with white gel pen, and just wrote out the shorthand version of January, and I'll do that for every month following as well. And then I spent an atrocious amount of time stamping in the quote by John Green that I found, which is, "Reading forces you to be quiet in a world that no longer makes a place for that." Which is so true. I mean, I think that's one of the main reasons I love reading, is it just allows me peace and quiet, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with like escaping the loudness of the outside world, but sometimes even the loudness inside my own head, right? Of when I'm reading, I don't have to focus on those things that are bothering me or causing anxiety. I can just submerge myself into these fictional worlds and characters and live a different life for a little bit. And that moment of peace is really what I long for from reading. And I did forget to put the R in for, but I do come back and fix that, so in case anyone noticed. And then I decided I wanted round corners over there, so I just went in with that little corner rounding tool. I really don't know what that is or what it's from, but my mom had it and I took it. So on the January title page, I kind of played off of what I did in my actual bullet journal. For January, I used purples, I used my star stamp, and my white grid washi tape, and my purple dot. So I just kind of took those elements and put them in over here. And I think that's what I'll probably do for every month, so that I have some cohesiveness when I look between my 2022 bullet journal and my 2022 reading journal, and I can identify that those were from the same year in the future when I'm looking back on them. Now it's time for the final flip through. If you've made it all the way through this video, I appreciate it so much. It's a bit long, but there was a lot to get through. If you made it through and you liked it, if you could give the video a like, that would be awesome. Subscribe if you want to see more. Next video is going to be my February reading journal setup, so you can actually see what I plan on doing each month in this journal. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!